Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pantry to Plate. I am Kristen Elliott, your food bank dietitian. We are coming to you live from the Kaiser Permanente Learning Kitchen, and we are talking about winter vegetables. So we've talked about winter squash in the past, but today we're going to focus on cruciferous vegetables. So cruciferous vegetables are all related to each other and they have similar nutrients. So they're going to be rich in folate and vitamins K, A, and C, calcium, antioxidants, sulfur, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and fiber. So cruciferous vegetables can be an edible flower or a leafy green or a root vegetable, and they're all related to each other because they have similar, like I said, nutrients or also just like genes. So we're going to talk about today specifically broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. So broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts are all the flower of the plant that they grow on. So that's pretty interesting to think about. You're eating a flower. Who knew? So we're going to get started. I'm excited to share some of these recipes with you. These ingredients may be on sale at your local grocery store because they are in season. So when you shop for seasonal produce, they can be a little bit cheaper and then a little more fresh because they're growing in the season where they are peak. So let's get started. We're going to start with broccoli. So we're first going to make some roasted broccoli. The most basic way you can prepare broccoli outside of just like a boil or a steam. Roasting vegetables in general gives a great texture and a little bit of char, if you will. And it just makes it a lot tastier than just a boiled or a steamed vegetable. You also still end up with a nice crisp texture at the end, and you can really easily overcook them if you boil them. And you also don't lose any nutrients into the cooking water like you would if you're boiling it. So I want to show you how to cut up your head of broccoli here. Here we go. And then I'm hanging on to the stem because this is something that you can also use. You don't have to toss this, especially when you're buying your broccoli like this. So whenever at the store, it's going to be like cost per head of broccoli or cost per the weight of the broccoli. So when you toss this middle stem inside, you're actually throwing away some of your money. So hang on to this. I'll show you how you can use it. So here's our broccoli head. We're going to cut all the florets off. But one thing about it is at the top of each of the little florets, this is pretty loose. The little green parts, there's a couple of them have already fallen off onto my cutting board. But we don't want to make a big mess while we're cutting them. So I've got a couple tips here that will help you do that. We're not going to cut through the top. We're only going to cut through the stem, and that's going to keep us from losing a lot of those little pieces. So you might have some leaves here. No big deal. You can keep them. You can toss them, whatever you want to do. You're going to take your knife, and you're just going to cut the larger stems off, the little larger florets off first. And you're going to just cut them all off as you go around until you get closer to the middle where it is tightly packed together. There we go. Let me get them all. Okay, let's see here. So you can see here how they're starting to get closer together in the middle. I will go ahead and cut like this one off because there's a space. You're looking for the spaces. And then the ones in the middle, you're going to treat them like a second little bunch of broccoli, and you'll divide it into pieces. So actually, let me use this bowl here. So some of these little broccoli florets are bigger than I want to put in my mouth. Like that's too big. It's not a bite size. So something like this might be a little bit more comfortable. Oops, there we are. So I'm going to keep this and just toss it in my bowl. We got some tiny ones that came off of there. I'm going to add it too. You don't have to do anything else with those. But if it's bigger than a bite, then you should take your knife and you're going to cut it at the bottom of the top of the floret. And then you're going to pull it apart. So that keeps you from cutting through the top and making a bit of a mess. And yeah, it keeps you from making a mess. Just like that. So any of them that are just too big for a bite, and then occasionally you'll cut it in half and you're like, that's too big. So then you'll just cut it again. And what I like to do is follow where the spaces are. Those are my guide for cutting the broccoli. So you're going to just make sure you cut in the spaces so you can get some even cuts. Like this is a big one. This is a big one. So I'm going to cut it down the middle. And then I'm going to cut it again. So we got a much better bite there. So you can get really quickly through this garlic. I'm talking about garlic in a minute. Through the broccoli, once you get comfortable with that and you're just doing these single cuts through the stalk, pull it apart and go. That's a good size. So one more. And then this one might need a fourth. No, that one's good. This one's a little big. There. So that is those are the bigger outside pieces. And then once you get to this smaller section, I'm going to cut it off right here at the bottom. And that is where my stalk starts, kind of similar to this other one that I did earlier. And then you'll have the same opportunity. You'll have some spaces. So if they're loosely separated, just cut those off just like that. But these are going to be the perfect size. You don't have to cut those. And then once you get here, you don't want the super tiny pieces because they're going to overcook or they might even burn in the oven. So we're going to take this and treat it like it's a floret, like one of the bigger pieces that we had. And we're just going to cut it in half in the spaces. And then we're going to cut it in half again. Now we have comfortable bites. So that's how you cut a head of broccoli. You do a similar cut on cauliflower, but cauliflower tops are much more tightly packed, so you can chop right through them. You will have some bits come off, but it's not as loose as it is on the broccoli. So, okay, here's my chopped broccoli. We're going to roast this. So let me get this out of the way. I'm going to use a baking sheet with some foil just because I want an easy cleanup. You don't have to use the foil if you don't want it, but I like to do it. You can skip this bowl step and you can, as you're chopping it, add it straight to the baking sheet so you have one less dish to clean up as you go. So we're going to add some oil because the oil is really important for browning, and then we're going to add some seasonings. The beauty of this is you can add whatever seasonings you want to add. And I'm going to use olive oil. Okay. So our recipe calls for 1 to 2 heads of broccoli, and it's about 3 tablespoons of oil. I mean, cleaning a measuring spoon after you put oil in it is a little annoying. So I'm just going to do a little nice drizzle here over the top, not too much. A little figure 8 sort of shape. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to add my seasonings. So today I'm just using basic salt, pepper, and garlic powder. If you like spicy, you can add some red pepper flakes. You can make this like a Tex-Mex seasoning with some chili powder and some cumin. Whatever you want. It's super flexible. Whatever flavor you like. If you want it spicy, add some red pepper flakes. I personally love red pepper flakes on the roasted broccoli. Oops. Okay, doing this for ease of transition. So then you're just going to mix it all together. If you don't want to use your hands, you can use the bowl and you can do a nice little toss in the bowl. But I like to get in there. If you've got kiddos who are interested in joining you in the kitchen, this is a good kid activity. Get their hands in there and get everything coated. So you're going to notice, you're going to see when it's all coated in oil, it's a light coating of oil, but it's really important for the browning. So you want to make sure it's spread out really evenly. That's with any type of roasted vegetable, because if they're crowded, they're just going to steam and you're not going to get the crispy texture or the color that you want, the brown color. So nice and separated. Don't be afraid to use more than one baking sheet if you need to, or to bake it in batches. If you want to use this as meal prep, it's a great idea. It reheats really well. And you could, if you're serving your family, say you're serving your family the broccoli and you're also going to have it for leftovers for another dish, you can serve the first sheet for dinner, and then while you're eating, you can go ahead and put the rest of it in the oven while you're eating. So you can like sort of multitask. We're going to put this oven, and then I have some already done to show you. It also cooks at 400 degrees, so go ahead and preheat that as you start to cut your broccoli, and then 400, 425, and then you're looking at like 10 to 15 minutes. You give them a little shake in the middle to make sure everything's cooking evenly, but delicious. Okay, let's put it in the oven. Oh, shoot. All right. Well, that's cool. So, live stream mishap. I put it back in the oven to take a little nice picture, and I left it in there, so they're extra crispy. So this is real life. This is extra crispy, but you get the idea. You want it to be brown, and we all make mistakes. So the beauty of it. So that's what happened. We will be able to see these probably at the end of the episode, so I'll be sure to show you. Thanks for your humor. Okay, so we're going to continue after the burnt broccoli. Next recipe we're going to do. So we're going to make a cauliflower potato mash. I don't like, me personally, I don't like full-on mashed cauliflower. I want the potato. So it can help you decrease the amount of carbs that you're getting from the dish, especially if you have diabetes and you're trying to pay attention to the carbs. Cauliflower is minimal carbs, really similar texture once you cook it and mash it up, and it's the same color, so you're not really going to see it too much. So let's take a look at our ingredients for our cauliflower potato mash. I took an extra step today here, and this is delicious, but it's not required. So this is an extra step that you can take to get a really great garlic flavor. So I roasted some garlic, and I'm going to show you how it looks in the end, and I'll tell you how I did it. So 400 degrees in the oven. You're going to, there we go. Oh, it smells amazing. So this is the final product roasted. So you can see that I cut the top off of it, so I could expose the inside and all the little bits. And you're going to pour some olive oil over it. You're going to put it in your foil so it cooks and kind of steams while it cooks with the oil. And you're going to do it for 30 minutes minimum, and you're going to check it. So what you want to happen is when you squeeze this, you want it to pop out like that. That's what you want. You want it to squeeze out. I will also say you want to make more than you think you need, because you can easily just kind of like pop this all in your mouth. It's like butter, but it's garlic, and it's not adding any extra fat besides the little bit of olive oil that you cooked it in. So should have put on a glove here. That's okay. So we're squeezing out all the cloves, and we're going to add this to our mash. So that's just an extra little step you can do. If you're making the mash with another dish that also uses the oven, start your oven and your garlic in the beginning, and then you can use the oven for the rest of your dish. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to do a really quick rinse on my fingers. Okay. I'm going to save that rest for later. I think we have some toast around here. It's delicious. So here's our roasted cloves. I'm just going to mash it up a little bit with my fork so it mixes in really well. You can use as little or as much as you want. It gets a really nice, sweet, savory flavor when you roast it, and it's just delicious. Okay, so to make our potatoes and our cauliflower, you have two options. You can boil them together or you can boil them separately. I like to boil them separately because I want to mash the cauliflower first and get it as smooth as I can, and then I will mix it into the potatoes. You don't have to do that. You can boil it together and then you can mash it together, and that is your choice. So what we have here, our recipe calls for 1 pound of potatoes and 1 pound of cauliflower. I'm using frozen cauliflower here. So you don't have to go through the process of chopping the cauliflower like we chopped the broccoli earlier. So frozen cauliflower. I'm using Yukon Gold potatoes with a beautiful yellow color. Yukon Golds or russet potatoes are your best options for mashed potatoes because they aren't as starchy as red potatoes or other potatoes that can get a weird, interesting texture, or they can be too mushy or too watery and hold too much water after cooking. So russets and Yukon Golds. I always choose Yukon Golds. That's my preference. Russets are your cheapest and most available option, and you can use them. Also, when you cook your potatoes, you want to start in cold water. These are the small potatoes. So I cut them into similar sizes so they cook evenly. So it's usually like a quartered potato. They're like this size. If you want to decrease the amount of salt that your potato absorbs, you want to keep the skin. The skin is the barrier, and it will absorb for flavor, but not as much as if you had completely peeled it, and it absorbs a lot more. It is necessary, though, to salt the water when you boil potatoes because you can salt the final product. It's not going to taste the same as if you cooked it in salted water. So rule of thumb for that is about a teaspoon per quart of water. I didn't measure how much water I used. I didn't measure how much salt I used, but that is the rule of thumb there. So I'm going to toss these potatoes in one pot. This is cold water I'm adding it to. You can't see it. It's there. You probably heard it. I'm going to add my cauliflower to the other pot and boil it separately. And then the potatoes take 15-ish minutes once it starts boiling. So don't start counting your time until the water starts boiling. And then your cauliflower takes about 10 minutes. If you cook it together, you will start your potatoes and then you will add the cauliflower about halfway through. So if you're using the same pot here. Okay, so I have already boiled cauliflower and potatoes. So I'm going to use my potato masher here. I also am known to use like a measuring cup to mash things because you have a flat surface and that helps you sort of hit more items at the same time. So we're going to try both. We're going to do a mash with our potato masher, which is working really well. You got to hold that bowl though. It's going to go everywhere. You got to do the wiggle, make sure you're going to get it all mashed up. Now, if you have a food processor or if you have a blender, you could use those on the cauliflower. Don't use your food processor on the potatoes because it can make them sticky. You're going to mess with the starch in the potatoes when you use the food processor, and we don't want to do that. We want to love the potatoes and make them creamy and not sticky. I wonder if anyone has ever had that happen to them before. The first time I made this with cauliflower and potatoes, I did use a food processor, and I was like, why is this texture so weird? I learned from my mistake. Don't do that. There's my cauliflower mash. It's pretty smooth. You can, like I said, use your measuring cup and smash it. Oh, sorry about that. Yep. If you got any other bits that didn't smash the way you like with your masher, yeah, that actually helps it too. Okay, so that's my cauliflower. Let me also say this is half the recipe. So the other half I just added to the pots to cook. So your final product will be bigger than mine here. We're going to mash the potatoes now. I'm team skin. So I like skin. Okay, let me hold this. Hold it like a baby and mash it up. I like skin in my potatoes, and I like for it to be a little chunky. That's my preference. What's your preference? Do you like chunky mashed potatoes? It's like rustic. It feels like you're eating real potatoes, if you will. I definitely grew up on instant potatoes because they're easy and they're cheap. So I'm curious. Drop it in the chat. Okay. Mash, mash, mash. Now, it takes a little bit extra elbow grease to mash it when you leave the skin in there. How much work do you want to do? Take that into consideration. Okay. So also, when your potatoes are hot, straight out of the water, you're going to get a better mash. So these have been sitting out just a few minutes, and they're not as hot. They're doing pretty good, though. Just going to give you a little bit of arm workout. Grab your kiddos. Have them do this part. They also look like they already have butter in them or cheese because of the yellow potatoes. So that's cool. It's kind of a little trick for you to trick yourself into a little less fat added to your potatoes. Okay, we're going to add our mashed cauliflower. And then here at this point, this is where you get to sort of do your own thing with your flavor and your texture. If you are looking to keep the fat content lower, skip the butter. You can add some lower fat milk. I've got some milk in my fridge over here. I'm going to grab it. You can also take the water that you cooked in and add it to the mash because it's already salted. So you're going to have more like potato flavor and a little salt coming from it when you use the water. Similar to when you make pasta and you save some of the pasta water and add it to your sauce because it also will help thicken it up a little bit. As you can see, I'm doing one more mash through here now that I've got it combined. Okay. So this is where you take it, do what you want to with it. This is the basic version with skin. I think it looks delicious. It smells like potatoes. It doesn't smell like cauliflower, which is important, I think. Okay, one more recipe to go. Remember, this looks basic. This is your opportunity to make it yours. Choose your low-fat dairy products if you want to do that to make it a little more heart healthy. Low-fat sour cream. Use some low-fat Greek yogurt in place of that if you want the tart and the creamy, or your low-fat milk. I am the milk sour cream person in my mashed potatoes. So low-fat. Your heart will thank you. Okay. Last but not least dish is the quickest to demonstrate, but it has a little bit more hands-on time if you're going to use Brussels sprouts. Okay. Brussels sprouts are like the most disliked vegetable from our childhood, right? I've got a couple different ways that you can eat it. This way is raw, or you can roast it like you did your broccoli. So now in this century, people roast their broccoli, roast their Brussels sprouts. It gives it a nice texture and it cooks it and you get a little bit of crisp. Today, I have it raw, but listen, just listen to me before you're like, what? Okay. So this recipe is a cranberry walnut slaw. You can use cabbage or you can use Brussels sprouts because Brussels sprouts are baby cabbages. So what we did here is we grated the Brussels sprouts. So just used a cheese grater on the biggest hole and you just grate them. So this is a little bit time consuming, but this is one way you can serve them. So you're just going to grate them just like you grate cheese or carrots, like we grated the carrots over here too. Now, once you get to the bottom, don't hurt yourself. Just stop. I've got this bit here left with the stem. Oops. You don't have to force that into it. You can, if you want, take this over to your cutting board and just slice it into small pieces and add it to your mix. If not, all good. So that is how you grate the Brussels sprout. So I've got 3 carrots, about 1 pound of Brussels sprouts here. You can use a food processor if you have that, or a blender if you have that. If you don't, you can do this, or you can roast them like you roasted your broccoli, or I roasted the broccoli. Our salad dressing is very similar to the superfood side that a certain local restaurant used to serve. So if you like an apple cider vinegar type dressing, this is a good choice for you. So it's apple cider vinegar. We're using olive oil. If you don't like the flavor of it, you can use a neutral oil like a canola or a vegetable oil. We've got a little bit of sugar to balance it out. There's a little bit of salt in there. Super basic. So what I'm doing here is a great way to emulsify your salad dressing to make sure that the oil and the vinegar mix together really evenly. So if you leave it, though, it's going to separate again. So this is just also fun to do. Okay, I'm going to pour in my dressing. And then some other yummy ingredients here. We've got some walnuts that we toasted on the stovetop and gave them a rough chop, so they're a little chunky. We've also got some dried cranberries, so a little tang and a little crunch to add to the rest of the salad. If you don't have walnuts, you can use any other type of nut that you have available. If that's peanuts, go for it. Use your peanuts. It just gives a really great texture and some plant-based fats. So you're going to get some heart-healthy fats out of those walnuts or almonds that you choose to add. And then you mix it up. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. And it looks delicious. Look at all these colors. I'm always talking about how can you add more color to your dish? What can you add? Yum, and it smells so good. It smells so tangy. There it is. That is our sprout slaw. It smells so good. So good. Okay. That's recipe number 3. We use our three of the cruciferous vegetables today. We got the Brussels sprouts and the cauliflower and the broccoli. So that's only 3 of the whole family. Did you know that leafy greens fall into that, like turnip greens? Those fall into this category. Turnips, the root part, is also a cruciferous vegetable. So you're going to get those great nutrients and fiber from all these dishes. Okay, let's go see if we've got a successful run on the broccoli real quick. Perfect. We all make mistakes. Here's my roasted broccoli. We got some brown pieces in there. That's exactly what we want. We want it to be just a little bit crispy and you still get a nice tender bite when you eat into it. I took these once to a school mobile food pantry distribution, and this grandmother had her grandson And he tasted it, and he kept coming back to me for more broccoli. And she was like, "What did you do? Did you burn the broccoli?" Like, no, I put it in the oven. And she didn't know that you could do that. So try this. The little boy loved it. So hopefully that's a selling point for you to try. Okay, we got our 3 recipes done. I have a couple of announcements for you. Starting this afternoon, we are going to do a survey of all of our viewers of our live video streams. So that includes this series, Pantry to Plate, and also our Spanish series, Come Bien en Casa. So the survey will be in both English and Spanish. We're dropping it in the chat box. Please give us a few minutes of your time and let us know what you think about our content. What do you want to see more of? What do you think we can do better? Do we need better lights? Do we need better audio? What about a camera? Let us know what you think. It's going to help us plan for the next year of content. And we're going to try to figure out how to serve you better. So please give us a few minutes of your time. It's less than 10 questions. It's mostly multiple choice. And then a couple of opportunities to just give us a little bit more detail about what you think and what you want to learn about. So please, it's going to be open December 13th through January 13th. And we will promote it to you through Facebook and our other social media outlets. So if you forget, you'll probably see it pop up if you're following the Food Bank on Facebook, Instagram, other places. So please let us know about that. Join us on the 4th Tuesday of this month for our last episode of 2022. Can you believe that? It feels so crazy for it to be the end of the year already. So please join us then. Please take a minute to fill out our survey. And I hope you will try some different recipes with cruciferous vegetables. Okay? Thanks for joining. See you next time.